Next up, we have Touch Base in Seoul, and this week's guest is British-American artist Emma Webster. She is a painter of landscapes, but she's unique in that she reinvents the idea of landscape painting by using virtual reality technology. She recently made her Asian debut with her solo exhibition in Seoul. Her show was in fact the first for the new Perrotin Gallery in Gangnam. To tell us more about her exhibition, her creative process and more, Ms. Webster joins us via video now. Ms. Webster, hello, and thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let me jump right in. First off, why landscapes?
Well, I wish I could say it's a love of nature, but honestly, I came to landscape painting when I realized that so much of its history was about artifice and was faked.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Most of depictions of nature in the history of painting are just backgrounds for these allegories. And really, it's only until the 1800s that we begin to see painting nature as it actually exists. And so when I saw that, I thought, okay, there's a real opportunity here to marry set design with this conversation around landscape.
Right, okay. And it seems that clearly you are never just interested in recreating a landscape. You also seem to add abstract elements, making your work seem ethereal and otherworldly as well, I would say.
Absolutely. I mean, I look at a lot of the romantic painters, these giant vistas and sun flares. And in an era today where we're so surrounded by spectacle, it's fascinating to try and come up with new ways of integrating those techniques. And I find virtual reality just offers a completely fresh tool set to do so.
Right, you've become very known for using virtual reality technology to help create your landscapes. Could you first walk us through your creative process of how you make your paintings? I understand it involves digitally creating yourself 3D models of landscapes using VR imaging, which you then translate onto canvas.
Yeah, the process is a little bit of everything. So I'll start with collages and sketches and bring those images into virtual reality and then create the sculptures in the computer. So really, I'm working with these digital dioramas. But what's fascinating about them is everything is easy to manipulate. I can make them big, small. It's sort of painting from an object that is and can be all around me.
I understand that you initially started with actual physical dioramas before you moved on to virtual reality.
Yeah, so I had a friend who came and scanned a bunch of my little maquettes and figurines. And when I saw that there was this potential to bring objects from the real world into the computer and then make a whole new type of object within the computer, it just cracked open everything.
Right, so can you tell us about that first experience of using VR technology? What was that like?
For sure. Well, it's funny because I went to Stanford where I was surrounded by tech kids and computer science and didn't do any of it. I was too afraid. But really, now the technology, the software has become so approachable that I'm realizing this is going to be a tool that all artists integrate into their practice at a certain point, just like Photoshop is now.
What is it about VR that appealed to you? What aspects of it did you find interesting?
Well, it's an interesting philosophical question because it breaks this barrier of artist and object that no longer is one just looking at a still life on a table, but one is implicated in the scene that one's building. And there are just so many new opportunities to create physics and a lack of gravity within these scenes that we can't experience in real life.
There was a quote that I found interesting on a video for this show in Seoul. You said, "To me, virtual reality is about sharing the private theatre of one's own mind." Can you elaborate a bit more on that?
Yeah. Well, virtual reality is the first time that we can really see and move about within another person's headspace.
Mm,
Before, it was all language. I had to tell you what I was seeing, what my dream was. And now it's almost as if you can experience exactly what I have experienced, even though it doesn't exist.
mm. And I've seen images of you sculpting your 3D VR models. I'm also curious, have you shown that more to people, actually putting on the headsets for people who are curious? Would you ever consider perhaps even allowing a gallery viewer to view the model, to step into that world as well?
For sure. I mean, I love the idea of the experience being immersive, but it's also very important to me that it comes back to the conversation around painting, which is painting is all about depiction of space. It's our first virtual reality. And as much as I love video games, that's not what I'm trying to create here. I'm trying to make, paintings speak to this original conversation around optics.
Right. Also, there's something else I wanted to ask you about. In January this year, the actor Emma Watson made her directorial debut with a short film focusing on you. How did that come about?
Oh, she's so brilliant. She's creative, smart. A mutual friend who's an artist brought her to my studio, and I think it was when she saw all of the little puppet theaters that she's been interested more and more in directing. And
Mm,
so that became a kind of meta device where I could be her little puppet. But then there was also this conversation around theater and stage happening in the background.
mm. Was she interested in the VR as well? Was this before the VR then?
For sure. So this was right as I was beginning to incorporate VR
Mm,
and,
okay.
talking about nature and the environment in different ways. And she, as we all know, is a wonderful activist and advocate for the environment. So we connected on all of these different levels.
In that video as well, you said every painting is an argument, and sometimes you get into an argument and you lose, and I lost plenty. Could you tell us about how a painting compares to an argument, and how do you win that argument, I guess?
Oh man. Yes. I mean, an argument, you have a vague sense going into it what your points are or what the counterpoints might be, but
Mm,
you win or lose an argument based off of something you didn't expect happening. And that's how it is with a canvas. You set out with a plan, but sometimes it tells you the truth that you weren't expecting,
mm.
and then you have to bear it.
Right, so even with your VR models, I think people should understand that what they see on the canvas is not exactly what you've created in the VR model either.
Totally. There's this call and response where, though I have the sketch from virtual reality, at the end of the day, I'm solving painting problems. So there's a lot of gestural painting, glazing. I encourage anyone who's in Seoul to go check it out because they're very
Hmm.
like wet paintings. And I don't think people expect that.
Indeed. Let's talk more about the exhibition. It's called Illuminarium. It's currently on view at Perrotin's new gallery in Gangnam's Dosan Park in Seoul. It'll run until October 20th. Could you maybe give us a short introduction to the exhibition and the works on show?
Yes, so Illuminarium is about 12 different paintings that all function as these natural history dioramas or tanks. They're these fantastical scenes. Each painting is made from its own model and uses set design, lighting techniques to kind of create a space that the viewer can visually traverse but
Hmm.
can't quite enter the diorama.
Uh, there was another interview I saw with you where you want people to feel like they're immersed in it and that they could find caves within the paintings as well. I think that's a curious statement that there are almost just out of view, out of sight, there are things you're teasing us with in the paintings.
Absolutely. And the name Illuminarium, it really hints at this fact that light is the way that we see volume. It's the way that reflected light, curves over, around, through things that gives a sense of space. And so this definitely brings in a new type of lighting.
Mm. What do you hope viewers take away from the exhibition? What kind of feelings do you want them to take away?
Um, I mean, I'm interested in painting re-engaging with this conversation around optics and technology, that in a time when we're used to our eyes being hacked in a certain extent, to a certain extent, that we need to remember that this all came about
Mm.
really from painting, from murals in Pompeii, that is the original technology.
And you were in Seoul for setting up the exhibition. How did you find your time in Seoul?
I loved it. I mean, speaking of technology, I was just amazed. Every window display seemed to have a hologram and folding screens, and Seoul is really on the cutting edge of all of these conversations.
Sure, and I feel like you're contributing to that conversation as well with your exhibition. Beyond this exhibition, do you plan to continue exploring what you can do with VR? Is there more VR inspired works to come?
Absolutely, yes. I'm interested in maybe including some new sculptures. I'm working on a painting show right now for Perrotin's Tokyo space in March.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of fun things happening in the studio.
Right, that there's more to come, more that we can expect from you. It's a fascinating show. Once again, it's called Illuminarium, on view at Perrotin's Dosan Park Gallery until October 20th. And we've been speaking to the artist Emma Webster. Ms. Webster, congratulations on the show, and thank you for speaking to us today.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.